in the outer arena. He's got nowhere to run, but he's going to make his way out of Jacob's way anyway. Here comes the BFG, trying to get lucky. Well, the blue room, it's not going to happen. 8 seconds.
He's got to chase. He's just got to go absolutely mental right now. Try and fight him. But Jake is searching down. He gets the kill. We got 2 seconds.
And there's no
he got it! It's going to be a draw. What the hell, man? That is brutal. I cannot believe that, Jahar.
Doom and Deathmatch go together like bread and butter. There's no other game that I can think of other than Doom and Deathmatch mode that requires so many split-second calculations to be done in such quick succession. The average amount of times you will kill and be killed per minute in a 4 to 8 player deathmatch is simply staggering. In the realm of sports, Aussie rules football is often called the fastest game on feet. I've always been of the mind that Doom was the equivalent in the realm of video games. The only other competitor I think it has in the deathmatching realm would be the Quake series, especially Quake 3 Arena, and that's not at all surprising since Quake and Doom are brothers, and they have some very strong overlap in their genes. While there's still a sizable chunk of Doomers who love deathmatching, it's safe to say that game mode has taken a back seat in the cultural Doom zeitgeist. In the 90s and early 2000s, whether or not a player was a Doom god was determined almost strictly by their performance in the arena. If no other player could go toe-to-toe with you in Dwango 5 Map 1, Judas 23, or SSL 2, you could officially wear the crowd that says Doom God on it. This may be surprising to newer players who undoubtedly see one's speedrunning achievements as the pinnacle of Doom skill. Of course, I'm not trying to downplay the skill required for speedrunning, perish the thought, but it's kind of sad to me that the gladiatorial arena has almost been discounted in modern times when it comes to Doom skill. Doom is largely a game about zipping around at a fast pace and surviving through your ability to react in split-second dangerous situations. Let me just tell you this, there's no wave of demons that can make me panic the way a small arena with 6 Doom guys running around in it can. Just think about that for a second. 6 Doom guys. We all know how badass the Doom arena is, don't we? Well, multiply that several times over, and now imagine all of them literally never stop charging you with the sole intention of killing you. I'm sorry, demons, but you just don't hold a candle to a small army of Doom guys when it comes to putting me on edge. Anyway, I just wanted to start the video with this little preface to either remind people or perhaps introduce people to the sheer fast-paced thrill that is Doom Deathmatch. I actually run deathmatch servers on the Zandronum, ZDoom, and Odomex master lists under the doomshack.org tag. The entire purpose of these clusters is to give both local and international players the ability to frag one another, and there are many other active clusters as well. On my Zandronum and ZDoom servers, I've even enabled automatic bots that you can play against until a real person connects, so that waiting a few minutes for an opponent doesn't really get boring. After hearing my personal top 10 list, I really hope some of you feel encouraged to go and dip your toes into a Doom Deathmatch. It's a game mode that deserves more love than it gets these days, but above that, it's simply a rush. Number 10, Cybercrime 3 by Dark Linux. To any mid-2000s ZDoom players who may be out there, it should be no surprise to see Cybercrime 3 on this list. At the time I first played it, I had never seen anything like it before. This feeling of being trapped inside some sort of computerized hellscape was very amazing and daunting, and overall the map designs, even when flawed, lend themselves to a great deathmatching experience. The enhanced speed of the chain gun and rocket launcher help to give more balance against the traditionally dominant super shotgun. Even players who aren't into multiplayer or competitive dooming really should boot this one up and give it a wander. Even to this day, very few WADs out there have embraced the full-on cybernetic vibe that this WAD gives off, and even fewer have surpassed it in the visual goals it set out to achieve. Seriously, all those ones and zeros zipping around in the sky while 4 to 8 players blast each other non-stop, that's a genuinely irreplaceable feeling that no other WAD has given me before or since. Number 9, Dweller 2 by Dweller in the Cellar. Dweller 2 is a purely classic deathmatching experience. There's a reason that Dweller 2 Map 11 has been a regular choice for tournaments and competitive play, and that reason is ingenious design. Unlike other 90s deathmatch WADs, even other very enjoyable ones, the Dweller maps engage in this sort of multi-level, three-dimensional combat that many of its contemporaries lack. That's not to say every map in Dweller 2 is the pinnacle of design. As with any Doom WAD, it has its levels that are highlights and lowlights, but there's a reason that this is one of the WADs that dominated the early era of Doom Deathmatch. The attention to maneuverability allows this WAD to transcend its age and overall vanilla visual style into being a great experience for both competitive and casual fragging even today. Number 8. British 10 and British 11 by the British Doom League. The British series actually has multiple entries, but when deathmatchers talk about it, they're almost certainly referring to Brit 10 and Brit 11. These levels were designed for duels, but in the early 2000s, the ZDoom community essentially rebranded them as the ultimate fast-paced BFG blastfests. There's something inherently thrilling about spawning in a tiny, insanely hectic arena and doing a mad dash for the BFG, inevitably getting blasted several times, but then finally making it and wreaking havoc on the other players to the tune of multiple monster kills. There's really not much else to say about these maps. Considering they're from 1995 to 1997, they have a very clean and appealing aesthetic style, and putting aside the insane BFG-a-thons that classic deathmatchers love, they also serve their intended purpose as one-on-one maps very well. If for some reason you don't want to have a big group frag fest and just play one-on-one with a friend, these maps will suit your needs very well. Number 7. Gothic Deathmatch. Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush here. While the Gothic WADs have okay-ish gameplay, it has always seemed to me that their main reason for existing was showcasing very early in Doom's lifespan, 1997 to be exact, just how beautiful a WAD can be. Players who started out with Eviternity or Ancient Aliens are probably going to be scratching their heads about this one, but in all honesty, the Gothic WADs really did pave the way for many greats that came in their wake. Consider their placement this high in the list as me acknowledging their historic importance more so than their fun factor as deathmatch arenas. For this WAD to not be given praise for its importance and long-lasting influence would simply be criminal. So many WADs to this very day heavily rely on the Gothic texture pack, and I think that speaks volumes for its longevity. Number 6. Neon Deathmatch by the Mechanics Union. Dear God, man, these maps are something else entirely. They do have an analog in Gothic DM in that, much like how Gothic showed the mapping community of yesteryear what could be achieved on the visual front, Neon Deathmatch shows the modern mapping community not only how beautiful Doom maps have the potential to be, but also just how much visual variety you can fit into one single WAD. On the flip side of that, they're completely dissimilar from Gothic in that each and every level is a blast to play. Being so modern, this WAD avoids all the cardinal sins of deathmatch design. Never are you going to be forced to wander around through unfun, overly narrow tunnels. Never are you going to be forced to walk around helplessly with just the pistol, and never will you find yourself in a flat, boring donut. The combat is always multiplanar, and the Eon weapons that are loaded alongside Neon DM really provide an interesting twist on Doom's weapon balance, giving the player far more choices for how they want to execute competition. Seriously, even if you don't give a single damn about Doom Deathmatch, you owe it to yourself to boot this WAD up in Xandronum and peruse the maps. I dream that one day we will see either the Mechanics Union themselves or some other fans out there create single-player versions of some of these incredible arenas. I'd have to give this WAD the award of most beautiful level set I've ever played. Number 5. Green War by Hellbent. Coming off the back of Neon DM, Green War might look as passé as it gets, but for me, not only do these maps evoke a strong sense of nostalgia, but they remain excellent on the gameplay front. Sure, some of the maps have the boring one texture everywhere thing going on, and about a third of the maps are kind of experimental and not that great, but on the whole, the gameplay in this WAD is solid as a rock. It's no coincidence that even today, 19 years after the WAD was released, they're still very commonly seen on Doom Deathmatch servers. Not only is the gameplay fun, but I think there's actually something to be said for plain visuals. A lot of color and visual clutter can be fun to look at, but ultimately it can end up a bit distracting. There's no room for distractions in Green War. The muted tones of every level ensure that you always very clearly see your opponent, and in combination with the fantastic free-flowing level designs, skill with your weapon and your movement will always be the deciding factor of which player comes out on top. Some might call the better half of Green War classic Doom Deathmatch distilled down to its purest form, and I would be inclined to agree with that sentiment. Number 4. Unidoom Deathmatch 3 and UDM-X. These WADs are long-lasting staples of Doom Deathmatch for good reason. The layouts are always comfortable to move around in, but never feel repetitive from map to map. The themes range from tech-based to beachy to hellish, and that's just a sampler of the various vibes these maps dare to indulge in. They also feature snazzy new color palettes which help to give them their own unique character among Deathmatch WADs. I remember being absolutely floored when I first booted up UDM3 way back when. I had never seen palette alterations to this magnitude, so I was flabbergasted as to how they did it. This is not to mention the fantastic music choices, largely from classic Super Nintendo games, but in total sourced from a variety of places. All the different elements come together to form two of the greatest multiplayer megawads of all time. Absolute must-haves in any Deathmatch fan's collection. Number 3. Don't Be a Bitch Remastered by the Mechanics Union. Don't Be a Bitch is a few years old now and is an earlier work by the Mechanics Union, but as with most of their creations, it is very fun and very aesthetically pleasing. The starting map, Fade, created by a friend of mine named Decay, is, in my humble opinion, one of the greatest deathmatch arenas ever constructed. It goes so well with the song that was written for it. Regardless if you're getting your ass kicked or if you're doing the ass kicking, playing this map in a duel is a must for any fan of multiplayer Doom. It's not just the first map though, this WAD is chock full of interesting levels, inspiring visual scenes, and well-designed gameplay that ensures you'll always be looking for a cache of items to fill your health and ammo back up and dominate the opposition. I'd also like to note that, as far as I'm concerned, item respawn being turned on is important for the mechanics WADs. DBAB really is a set for the ages, and it should have appeal for old schoolers and new schoolers alike. Number 2. Execution Deathmatch. Good lord, Execution. This is another one of those WADs that early 2000 deathmatchers will remember either fondly or hatefully, depending on which end of the BFG they're standing on. If the British series was the prince of fast-paced, heavy BFG fragging, then Execution surely is the king. Not only are the levels generally played at out-of-this-world speeds, but even if you strip the main attraction, the BFG, you're still left with maps that look really good considering their 21-year age, and have layouts that are simply perfect for zipping around in. One thing that Execution brings to the table is perhaps the most underrated original soundtrack for any Doom WAD. If the maps themselves aren't enough to tear you limb from limb in the most thrilling way imaginable, the soundtrack absolutely will be. There are some of the most aggressive and yet catchy tunes I've ever heard in the realm of custom Doom content. While in the last 10 years we've finally entered an age where it's semi-common for Doom levels to have music that was written specifically for them, this wasn't nearly as common in the era from which Exec originates, with a few notable exceptions like Memento Mori and Icarus. I feel like it's pretty much impossible to overstate the importance of this WAD when it comes to Doom Deathmatch history. If you've never played it before, I urge you to do so at least once. No other WAD will teach you how to bob and weave away from the BFG the way a semi-crowded Execution server will. Number 1. The Dwango series. I think it's no surprise that the Dwango series has to be number 1 on this list. Truth be told, the gameplay of many Dwango maps is kinda stingy, and a lot of them have aged poorly, but there's just so much history wrapped up in this series. Dwango is the only deathmatch related content you'll see named on the original Doom and Doom 2 boxes, and many of the WADs that have come since must simply bow their heads and give thanks to the Dwango service and series for helping to pave the way. In fact, every FPS in existence with online multiplayer should bow their heads to Dwango. It was the first ever international matchmaking service, and the WADs played on it and made for it were genuinely exploring brand new territory and laying the framework for a phenomenon that still booms to this very day. You ever played Quake internationally and loved it? Give your thanks to Dwango. You ever played multiplayer Call of Duty? Sing your praises for Dwango. How about multiplayer Halo? Pray at the altar of Dwango. You ever played Fortnite? Well, most Fortnite players actually probably haven't even played Doom, let alone a Dwango WAD, but they should be kissing Dwango's ass for all it did for multiplayer gaming. As Doom was to the FPS genre as a whole, Dwango is to the multiplayer side of the FPS genre. It's the godfather. If Doom is Adam, Dwango is Eve. To truly give this series the treatment it deserves, I compiled the 50 best authentic Dwango maps into one WAD called Dwango 50, which is of course linked in the description alongside all of these other map sets. It'll run perfectly in any port including the vanilla EXEs, so that you and any other players you might find can experience the very same joy that those pioneers in the mid-90s experienced. The joy of fragging every enemy in sight no matter what country you may be connecting from. Doom Deathmatch really is an experience that many players hold near and dear, and I hope I was able to share some of that love with you through this video. Before I wrap things up, I just want to give mention to a WAD that myself and my friends Decay and Razgriz have recently released called Bourgeois Deathmatch. What we tried to do is take the lessons learned from playing all these WADs, the what to do's and what not to do's, and construct some truly crowd-pleasing arenas for the masses to frag each other in. This set is fully compatible with vanilla Doom and the official Unity-based Doom ports, and not only does it support deathmatch play, but each arena also has single-player and cooperative support that will surely give even skilled players a run for their money and provide an exciting experience overall. With your support, we really hope to see this WAD adopted as an official add-on for console players, so that they too can experience the long-lasting joy of deathmatch that was felt by the dwango players of yore. If the community becomes more aware of Bourgeois Deathmatch, we may just attain the level of popularity necessary to become an official add-on and achieve our goal of providing well-balanced, enjoyable arenas for every doomer to frag each other in. I also just want to give a quick shout out to some WADs that weren't on the list. The Styx Deathmatch series by Richard Jaspers is another personal favorite of mine that would probably be in slot 11 on my personal list. There's also some long-standing classics such as the Danzig, Mancer Extreme, and Judas WADs, which influenced just about everything that came after them. There's a reason Judas 23 is one of the main competitive duel maps to this very day. There are many other great WADs and dueling classics out there, but this video will go on eternally if I don't cut myself off. Anyway, that's all I have for now. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll definitely have more Doomy content on the way soon. Take care, and hopefully we'll see you around here again soon.